Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to MST.TV. In today's Market Watch episode, we are continuing to look at some of the more absolutely wild buyouts that we've seen from the Yu-Gi-Oh community over the last few days. Now, some of these buyouts were pretty decent, at least a little bit logical, some sort of tie-in to the meta or something, but some of these other buyouts, on the other hand, were actually just like completely ridiculous and baffling. I'm honestly hoping these buyouts weren't made by any of you watching, or if they were, please explain some of your reasoning to me in the comments, because a lot of these really didn't make any sense. So yeah, as confusing as this episode is going to be, let's get started. So to kick things off, we'll start off with one of the more well thought out buyouts we saw over the weekend, and that was the buyout of Cosmic Fortress Golgar. As I'm sure all of you know, aliens are one of the top decks of the current format, and are picking up the attention of a lot of high-level players. In fact, the Alien engine is seeing play alongside various other strategies, such as Adamancipators and Eldritch, so it does make sense that... Wait. No, this can't be right. Today is May 5th. What? Today's not April Fool's Day, guys. Yeah, so apparently, for some crazy reason, some person decided to buy up most of the quantities of Cosmic Fortress Golgar available on the market. Now, if you're looking for an ultra rare near mint, you're looking at $22 at the moment, but if you're looking for an ultimate rare, there are currently no near mint ultimate rare copies on TCG Player, which is pretty insane. Now, you can still grab your lightly played ones for anywhere from $10 to $20, but near mint is what we're almost always going to be looking for here. Honestly, like, the only reasons I can think of for someone to try to buy this card out is someone thinks that aliens are super collectible, or someone thinks that aliens are going to get good support within the next like year or two, and Cosmic Fortress Golgar could be a really good card in that strategy, and it hasn't been reprinted yet. Now, however, aliens haven't really had any meta impact since they were first released more than a decade ago, and I don't think that's really going to change anytime soon. I get that they just got a new Link monster in Dual Overload, but come on guys, let's try to use our brains here a little bit. If you do happen to still be holding onto your copies of Cosmic Fortress Golgar, I'd definitely try to move them, unless you're one of those people who thinks that aliens are going to be a next big meta deck. Next up, we have another brilliant buyout target, and that is Cosmo Dark Destroyer. Specifically, the secret rare version was bought out, and at the moment you're looking at $45 to $50 a piece on TCG Player for this card. In fact, at one point they were actually $90 lowest, which is kind of insane, and I'm actually wondering how many actually sold anywhere close to that price point. Now, the price has cooled down since then, as people realized this was kind of crazy. So a lot of people are really big on the potential that Cosmo has, because at one point they were one of the best decks of the format, and Dark Destroyer is still a really big card that can be very difficult for certain decks to get through. We actually did see a top from the deck within the last year, I think when it was played by Johnny Nguyen. However, I don't think that the deck is really going to be doing anything for the next little while, unless the deck gets some crazy support out of nowhere. Now, while I do understand the idea behind picking up max rarity deck cores to hold onto as an investment in case of future support, I think that the Dark Destroyer buyout at this price point is kind of ridiculous and definitely isn't going to be profitable at all. If you do have the originals and you can move them for these crazy inflated prices though, then congratulations, go ahead and do that. If not, if you want to hold onto a Cosmo deck core, I see no problem with holding onto the lower gold rare versions just in case some support is announced. Okay, so this might actually be one of the silliest price spikes that I've ever seen, and this is the jump in the price of Mecca Phantom Beast O-Lion, which is now a $17 card on TCG Player. Now, I do get it. This is a very good card with Crystal Needle Fiber. It gives you some really broken boards because you can synchro with it once you summon it out, and it gives you that extra body when it leaves the field that you can then synchro or link summon with. However, we have a confirmed holo reprint of this card coming in Battles of Legend Armageddon, which is in July, only 2.5 months away. Now, normally, I could see some reasoning behind this buyout, right? If people need this card to do well at a YCS event, and they're forced to pay like an inflated price for this card just to use it there. But really, what events are you guys going to be using this in for the next 2.5 months? Unless you really need it to win like that 4-person locals that someone is running out of their basement, you really don't need to be spending this much money on a card when a holo reprint is confirmed to be coming up, and you'll probably be able to grab it for only a couple of dollars. The one thing that does kind of suck for me is that I have already moved all of my copies of this card a little while ago, but really I don't think anyone was expecting this card to be bought out now of all times. Alright guys, we're going from crazy ridiculous buyouts to only slightly crazy now. Let's take a look at the high rarity versions of Treacherous Trap Hole. So some of you might remember this card from way back when Traptrix Rafflesia first came out in Breakers of Shadows, but Rafflesia and Treacherous Trap Hole did see play a few years back in the Performapal format as a rank 4 toolbox option. Well, now I believe that Rafflesia might start to see a bit more play with the release of Gravedigger's Trap Hole in Eternity Code, which kind of functions like a Called by the Grave that burns your opponent for 2,000 life points, a really powerful effect on a generic rank 4 monster, especially because it enables a powerful trap like that to be utilized when you're going first. With that being said though, I think that Treacherous Trap Hole is starting to see a bit of attention at the same time, as it can be an option to be used in matches where Gravedigger's Trap Hole isn't as strong of a card. So for the Turbo Pack Super Rares, we're currently looking at around $18 each with very few quantities available on the market, and the Secret Rares now, Secret Rare Unlimiteds are only $2 to $3, but Secret Rare First Edition copies are completely gone from TCG Player, though realistically, I'd expect them to be about the same prices as the Supers, maybe a little bit higher, that $20 to $25 range. I don't think that this is a card that you need in max rarity because I don't think it's one of the top options that you want to play in the deck. I would be perfectly content with just picking up a common or a gold rare to have as an option and then make do with that. So Soma Dulce Pettingcessor is a card that I think is very easy to overlook, but is absolutely something that should be dug out of your bulk because it is actually now a $2 to $3 card. This card has multiple functions within the meta. It's obviously used in Soma Dulce as one of their key combo starters to help get an extra Soma Dulce body onto the field, but it is also used in Adamantipator's to help make Gallant Granite because it is a level 4 special summon, and it's also an earth monster that can be banished for either Gigantus or Block Dragon. Now, I personally just found out about this card a few days ago when I was looking at some of the top Adamantipator deck lists. I dug through my bulk and I found like 15 copies of this card that I now have to move, but that's some pretty free value right there. It is expected to be reprinted in the 2020 Megatons though, as it is from Savage Strike, so hopefully it'll be in there as a holo. I would definitely recommend moving all of your extra copies now while they still have some value in them before they do eventually tank. Now, Delinquent Duo is a card that has spiked up within the last few days or so. It was reprinted as a secret rare in the Legendary Collection Kaiba set, despite not being unbanned or errated. This card is actually a really key card in GOAT format, part of the trinity of the format played alongside Pot of Greed and Graceful Charity in every single deck. Now, this card was one of the few expensive GOAT format pieces before it was reprinted, but the reprint dragged it down all the way to only the $2 or $3 mark. It has since then rebounded back up to roughly where it was before the reprint ever came out, so you're looking at anywhere from $10 to $15 for any print of this card. Now, I think that a lot of people are turning to GOAT format right now. I think that without any real life events, it's difficult to be motivated to play the actual format and practice where the format is just going to rotate out most likely in a few months. Whereas with GOATs, right, it's something that you can play and you can improve at continuously because the format doesn't really change. I know that on Dueling Book right now, there is rated GOAT format, which is pretty interesting and may have helped to get people's interest back in the format. But yeah, unfortunately for now, this card is back to being one of the last expensive pieces that you're going to need to find if you're looking to build your GOAT format deck. Alright, so this is a card that I was actually going to recommend people actively look at picking up now, but that's when I realized the card has actually already started to jump up in price. Herald of the Arclight is a really powerful synchro monster, both on the field and when it's sent to the graveyard. On the field, it works as a macro Cosmos, as well as an Omni Negate, and when it's sent to the graveyard, even if it's sent directly from the extra deck, you get to search for either a ritual monster or a ritual spell. Now for one, the card sees play already in Adamantipator's as a level 4 synchro option that the deck can make with a tuner and Doki Doki. However, the card will likely see more play in multiples when Rise of the Duelist drops later this year and introduces the new Dragma archetype to the game. Dragmas allow you to dump cards from your extra deck to the graveyard directly, though locking you out of your extra deck, which kind of makes them a perfect archetype to play alongside something like Necroz, as the extra deck isn't super important and they can really make use of those Herald searches. So the original supers are all kind of in that $8 to $10 range, which is relatively high. However, even the ultra ultras, which were just reprinted in Battles of Legend and were under $1 not too long ago, are already at about the $3 mark and starting to trend upwards. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the ultras climb up to the $6 to $8 price range, assuming it doesn't get a reprint, of course. So if you're looking at using the card in your deck later this year, I would definitely grab my copies sooner rather than later. So an interesting thing that we're seeing with Adamantimators, which are kind of like the combo deck of the format, is that they're running as many ways to get multiple bodies onto the board as possible in order to get their combos going. Now, one interesting build that I saw over the weekend actually played 2 copies of Quickdraw Synchron alongside 3 copies of Tuning. Now, because Quickdraw just requires a discard from your hand to get a free special summon tuner onto the board, and Tuning can search Quickdraw reliably, it seems like a way to improve the deck's ability to make Needle Fiber consistently. Because of that, the 2 higher rarity versions of Quickdraw Synchron are actually fairly expensive, as the Turbo Pack Super Rare is around $20, and even the Ultras from Legendary Collection 5Ds are around $15 a piece. I believe these have actually been fairly expensive for quite a while, at least around the $8 to $10 mark, but have creeped up steadily over the last little bit, and they could definitely continue to increase if this ends up being the preferred way to play Adamantimators. At any rate though, there are still commons available from Legendary Duelist Magical Hero for less than $1 each, so just run those if you're intent on playing this engine in your deck. Alright guys, so we're ending off this market watch with something that doesn't really actually make very much sense to me. So I'm sure that you all know by now, but Ultimate Rare Vanities Fiend from OTS Tournament Pack 1 was actually bought out. At one point, there were only 3 available on the market for $70 US a piece, and now it has cooled down to around the $56 to $60 mark. However, this is actually the weirdest buyout that I've ever seen, because the card has an original Ultimate Rare printing that is actually older than this tournament pack printing from way back in Cyberdark Impact, and yet that version remains untouched. This is really weird because you would think that originals in the same rarity would be bought out first, yet you can get the original unlimited print for $27 and the original first edition with that first edition stamp for only $35, and yet the reprint Ultimate Rare is like double the price. Like, I kind of get it because the newer versions, I think, look a little bit more clean in my opinion. You can kind of see the background a little bit better, and they are from a tournament pack, but this one is still really weird, and I don't quite understand why it was chosen. And at the same time, I don't think anything is even really running Vanities Fiend at the moment, or at least it's not seeing any more play now than it was before. The card still dies right to things like Infinite Impermanence and Dark Ruler No More and Lightning Storm, so I don't know why this card just shot up in price randomly, but with how unpredictable the market has been recently, I feel like this card's buyout is the perfect representation of the unpredictable nature of these buyouts in this market. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. This week has been a really weird one for buyouts. So many of them didn't make any sense to me at all, and I don't understand the reasoning behind them. If you were part of some of these crazy buyouts, do us all a favor and explain some of your rationale behind them. I'd love to learn what you guys are thinking. If you guys aren't part of those buyouts, hopefully you're able to take advantage of them and move some of those cards that you've been holding onto for a little bit of a higher price. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's episode, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button for me. And of course, as always, leave a comment down below. Let me know what else is happening on the market so that I can hopefully cover it in a future episode and keep all of you guys as informed as possible. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for all of the latest content from Tombox and myself. And yeah, so until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.